we've probably talked about Jeff the Killer a lot, about why we don't like Jeff the Killer at all.
Well, yeah, because he's a very poorly written antagonist.
He is, but can we even say Jeff the Killer's a poorly written antagonist when there's no one writer for Jeff the Killer? It's all like an amalgam of weirdos and freaks.
Well, in his original inception, he was no worse than what he is now.
Wasn't Jeff the Killer originally just like a little Photoshop thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you had
it was like that pale face with the buggy eyes, right?
Yeah,
the smile.
The fish face boy.
Yeah. That shit never scared me. Like the first time, it kind of got me, but every time after that, it just looks silly.
Yeah, it does. It does look silly.
Because it's like you said. Like I always thought it looked like those flat fish. You know what I'm talking about? Like the one that looks upset all the time.
Yeah, the sad one.
Yeah, the sad fish. It looks like that, except it's smiling.
Yeah, just to flip that smile upside down. I don't know. Okay, here's an idea. We don't like Jeff the Killer. Jeff the Killer's a terrible creepypasta. Is a terrible story. How do you make it work?
How do you make Jeff the Killer work specifically?
How do you make Jeff the Killer a good monster? Like a good horror villain? How do you do it?
The thing is, I don't know if you can without losing what made Jeff the Killer so popular, which was his extremely visceral way of killing people, I suppose.
Did he have a visceral way? I thought he just stabbed him.
What?
Didn't he just stab him?
No, I remember like in the story, he also he punched a kid out and like beat the shit out of him and rammed his head into the sidewalk or concrete or something like that.
Okay, the only detail I remember from the original story is when he's fighting the Stephen King bullies, is when he punches that one kid and his heart just explodes or whatever.
Oh, yes, that too. Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ, is this kid like fucking... Is he like gonna go Kano and just rip the heart out?
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, if you remove that and you focus on Jeff the Killer as being this sort of Night Stalker-esque villain, then I think it would work. But as it's written, usually it's just not. It suffers from like the Dead Space thing, unfortunately, where the it just gets progressively more action oriented over time as opposed to horror central.
I suppose so. Personally, I think you could totally make Jeff the Killer work as an actual villain. I mean, granted, like you said, you'd have to lose a lot of what made Jeff the Killer, but isn't that a good thing?
No, I'm not arguing that as a bad thing. Yeah, it's a great thing. I think Jeff the Killer as it is horrible, especially in a horror genre. He's the Dead Space 3 of Creepypasta.
I think that's too nice. Dead Space 3 is better than Jeff the Killer.
I don't know. You've never played it, so
he's the Silent Hill Homecoming of horror.
Silent Hill Homecoming was a good game, and you know it. I watched you play it. You had
shut
a
your
great
goddamn
time.
mouth. You shut your goddamn mouth.
I watched you play it the first time, and I heard you play it the second time, and each time you loved it.
This is revisionist history. This is fake news.
Okay, but Jeff the Killer, you lose a lot about him, but it would be better off. Is what?
It totally would be better off. That's why I agree with you. That's why what do you take from Jeff the Killer to make it work in the first place? Like, what elements do you take?
Do you take all? Sorry.
But repeat. Like, what elements do you take from Jeff the Killer to still make it identifiably Jeff the Killer, but to allow enough creative freedom to actually turn it into a decent antagonist?
Well, first of all, don't let him speak so much. He's a very vocal killer.
I agree with that. That's one of the worst things about Jeff the Killer is that, actually I'll say that ties into my first thing about Jeff the Killer making him work, is that don't make him sympathetic, relatable, or try to anyway. Don't make him like the hero, anti-hero, protagonist kind of thing.
Yeah, that only works if your anti-hero is still working for a good cause, which Jeff the Killer isn't. He's like the definition of a bad person.
Like, Jeff the Killer is just stabbing dudes so he can jerk off later or whatever.
Yeah. And, yeah, so first thing, I lose like 90% of his dialogue.
I agree.
Then
don't give him one-liners.
Don't give him one-liners, yeah, that too. Give him, like, maybe, I don't know, some kind of, like, I don't know how to phrase it. Like some unnerving things to say to his victims.
I have a way to make the things he says unnerving, and basically just be ripping off some Batman stuff. But, Jeff the Killer is already a ripoff of the Joker, so why not adapt something that hasn't been ripped off from the Joker too much?
Yeah.
There's a comic that's very famous. It's a 4-part miniseries called The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. It's very famous. The Joker in that is something I've never seen done too often outside of Frank Miller's version of the Joker. And it's a really interesting one to where he's very reserved and calm. He doesn't tell jokes. He doesn't do the maniacal laugh very often. He does it kind of at the very end. And he's just kind of off. Where he's kind of warm smile. He's very polite. And he's just weird.
So it's like the definition of like a psychopath in the dark, right?
Yeah, it's a psychopath trying to pass themselves off as normal, but he looks like, the Joker.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine a good Jeff the Killer would be.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would... if Jeff the Killer has to speak at all, which, if you want to do a good Jeff the Killer, you don't even necessarily have to make him talk. But, yeah.
So, him being a silent antagonist, I think, would also work very well.
Which, at that point, you probably just have Michael Myers, but, so I gotta take that back, because you would just have, Jason or Michael or whatever. So, talking is key to Jeff's character, but don't give him one-liners. And how I'd have him speak is like I just described with Dark Knight Returns Joker. Make him just calm.
One other thing that I think really turned me off to Jeff the Killer personally was his face.
Yeah, I agree.
I just think he looks goofy, honestly.
Yeah, and it's just insane that, okay, I'm just going to do the whole 2008 Dark Knight thing where I'm going to Heath Ledger my face up because, scary.
Yeah.
Because crawling in my skin, these wounds, they will not heal. Or whatever.
Yeah, right. It's super edgy, but it doesn't work.
Honestly, for Jeff the Killer, all you gotta do is just say he wears face paint or whatever.
Yeah.
Just make him
Why do you have to have his face burned?
Yeah, right? Why does he have to have that, that Joker backstory where he's horribly disfigured? Doesn't need to. Just make him a stupid, edgy kid who paints his face.
Yeah, that's scary enough because that's quite possible in IRL,
It actually is. You could make him like a teenage killer where... Oh, it would actually be kind of interesting for a short story about Jeff the Killer.
What?
Make it in a high school perspective from one of his friends or one of his acquaintances that goes to class with him. And just
Yeah? Sorry, kind of like a My Friend Dahmer kind of thing?
Yes. Okay, for anyone listening who hasn't read it, My Friend Dahmer is a graphic novel by a guy who goes by the pen name Durf Backdurf, and it's about, growing up in high school with Jeffrey Dahmer as kind of one of his acquaintances. It's a really good read, and that's how I would do, a short story for Jeff the Killer. If someone wanted to write a creepypasta about it, is that it's just a collection of unnerving events of this guy who knows Jeff the Killer, before he goes on an actual killing spree.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually a very good way to put it. Yeah, it'd be just like My Friend Dahmer.
Yeah, and how I would do it is I would pace it there's a lot of pet disappearances going on in the area, a natural amount, and have it be vaguely implied Jeff's doing it, but don't really outright say it. And I wouldn't have him speak very much. I'd have him a background character. And yeah, maybe make the main character a nerd, kind of just trying to investigate the pet disappearances, because maybe his pet disappeared at the start of the story, so he's trying to investigate okay, who the fuck is doing this? I want to kick his ass. And then as the story goes on, you start hearing about say halfway through, or maybe it's a multi-part because people like long creepypastas. One we should probably introduce the episode. We're just gonna talk about creepypastas today. Postmodern Mythologies. Just have a little...
Welcome to Postmodern Mythologies.
Yeah, we're trying to do a natural open, so we're just gonna talk about creepypastas today and shoot the shit and have some fun. And we started talking with everyone's favorite pasta hero, Jeff the Killer.
Yep. But before we start, I'd like to have a quick PSA about Kevin James.
We're not gonna talk about Kevin James.
Okay.
We had this conversation before starting this episode. God damn it!
Look, I'm just very upset of his existence.
We know you're upset about Kevin James existing. I'll get you a 1-to-1 face interview with Kevin James one day. You gotta give me time, though.
He's not funny, but he's so fat.
I will get you an interview with Kevin James. I promise you.
He doesn't even know how to structure a joke.
So getting back to Jeff the Killer and pasta discussion.
It's like punchline delivery. That's how he does it. What the fuck? And every punchline is, "Hey, I'm fat Kevin James." LOL.
You have watched so much more Kevin James than I've ever seen. Like, I've seen a few episodes of King of Queens. That's about it.
Oh, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
It is. It probably is. But I don't watch Kevin James.
I'm obsessed with this man.
Stop it then. Is this going to end with, like, a John Lennon situation where you're just going to go shoot him one day?
I'm not going to shoot Kevin James. I just want to know why he's so fat and why he thinks it's better than being an actual comedian.
I'll get you your answer, but we have to get back to the episode.
Okay, fine. Fucking creepypastas. Let's go.
Okay, so we're talking, like, Jeff the Killer. The story is that... Okay, so the short story I had in mind is that, high school situation, pet disappearances, vague, maybe Jeff's doing it, maybe he's not, but, obviously he is, and main character's investigating it, and then, like, halfway through, or, whatever length through, whatever author decides to tackle it, make it work, maybe there's, like, an attempted assault, and someone gets, like, seriously cut, and they don't know who did it, because they're wearing, like, a hoodie and a, kind of like a baklava mask, or whatever, or, like, ski mask, whatever you want to call them.
So basically the Antifa get up.
Yeah, basically. Bash the fesh. Anyway, so... we're going to get the dislike brigade for that. So... yeah, Jeff the Killer is Antifa confirmed. Okay, so basically, at that point, it was basically a huge escalation from, like, okay, pets are being killed, and now there's, like, an attempted murder of a high school student, and it would be like one of the bullies from the original Jeff the Killer story. And, like, one of the three who's mentioned, I don't know their names, because I don't care enough to remember them, but...
it's Rash, Pimple, and Zitz.
Okay, so Rash, let's say Rash gets like, almost murdered. Like, he gets severe cut on, like, his arm or something, and he has to go to the hospital.
Okay. And
he describes the attacker as, like, a dude in white hoodie and, like, a, like, ski mask or whatever. Or maybe even the face paint. Maybe even, like, the face paint with, like, a medical mask or whatever.
Or maybe we just keep the pale face and we just write that Jeff the Killer is albino. Maybe he was picked on for that.
Maybe that could work too. Yeah, there we go. There's the pale face. He's albino. He's a freak of nature. Sorry, albino. I'm sorry, albino listeners. I did not mean to come across as so mean.
It's okay. You are freaks of nature, though.
Okay, yeah, you kind of are. But so the killer would still be anonymous. Well, the attempted killer. And so that'd be a huge escalation in the story.
Get some melanin, seriously.
Okay, so, and then it would end with, like, the other two just being, like, flat out murdered.
It's just a straight murder.
Like, straight murder, and, like, one of them's dead and one's disappeared. And just have it end on this weird, ambiguous note where Jeff's fine. Just like, he's not disappeared. No one suspects him yet. But throughout the story, just have him act really odd. And I'd have him, like, maybe keep the bullying aspect, but make it lesser. Like, have it be like the bullies aren't even really bullying him. They're just kind of hazing him.
Oh, yeah. Kind of like banter.
Yeah, like banter. Like, make Jeff the Killer, like, a kid who cannot, like, he is so thin-skinned, he can't handle, like, basic jokes. Like, that would be kind of neat, I think. Kind of flip the script on what the idea of the bullies are in the first place.
I would like that.
And like at the start of the story, he's like kind of shaky, kind of like a weirdo, kind of quiet, kind of unconfident. And
I don't know about you, but I don't really see that kind of old style bullying anymore. It's more passive.
Yeah, it's very passive aggressive bullying because obviously post Columbine really cracking down on that shit.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's worse with women. Apparently, it's worse with teenage girl bullies. Apparently, really nasty from people I've spoken to. So, I don't know. Let us know in the comments if you have a better idea about bullying in the 21st century.
Well, I mean, everybody knows that women are horrible. So,
Shh. Don't delete our channel.
Everyone knows it's true.
Yeah, so back to my Jeff the Killer idea that I'm kind of coming up with on the spot here. So forgive me if I'm kind of starting over myself here. But have like the beginning of the story, have like the protagonist be his only friend, and he's kind of quiet, kind of paranoid, kind of twitchy, little really unconfident. And as the story goes on, as like there's like more pet murders, there's the assault, and then there's the whole on murder and the disappearance of the 3 bullies. Like one gets assaulted, one gets killed, one disappears. Have him progressively get more confident. Like he starts talking a little more, starts making like odd jokes, and he has just off-putting behavior to where it's not explicit, it's just odd, just really uncanny.
So as if he's trying now to be normal.
Yeah, he's trying to be a person because the people he saw as in his way are going away, and he's kind of he's done exercising his teenage angst and shitty rage against the animals, and is now moving on against targets they think are justified.
I like that. That's a good idea, I think.
Yeah, and like the ending could just be kind of like a vague allusion that he gives to the protagonist of our story that, hey, I'm not gonna say it, but maybe I know a little more what's going on, and it would just kind of end on that weird note, and maybe on graduation day, to where he's moving away, he's not gonna see the protagonist anymore.
It would be kind of a dead giveaway with the title, though.
It would be, but maybe you could make like a stealth Jeff the Killer.
How about it's still Jeff the Killer, but I don't know, maybe it's not as obvious. Like maybe it'd be like the killer's name would be like Marcus Jeffords or something.
I'd still keep the name Jeff, but I would not. I would maybe make Jeff like one kid in a larger group of kids, and like a couple of them have their pets disappear, and that's why they're looking into it. And then like halfway through the story, they have like an actual shit hits the fan with a kid in their school gets almost murdered, and it's not like, oh shit, it's getting real. And I would have Jeff as like one of the group of kids, maybe like make it that way, so it's a little less obvious. And obviously title the story to have nothing in it alluding to Jeff the Killer.
Yeah, just like call it something that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, give it a different title, but don't have any allusion to Jeff the Killer's character.
Call it Kid Rock Runs for Presidency.
Yeah, Kid Rock Runs for Senate. There you go. Coming to a theater near you.
There you go. Complete story.
Yeah, so that's just kind of my idea on Jeff the Killer, and Sam and I kind of shooting the shit right now, coming up with it. And so, yeah, that's sort of how we'd make the character work. But let's talk about creepypastas in general instead.
They were cool when we were teenagers.
Yeah, we read a lot when we were in high school together, and they're kind of fun at the time. Kind of a good way to spend an evening when you're not working on homework or whatever. But I don't know if you've been paying attention to kind of the narration channels and their view counts. It's a dying little genre.
To be fair, it is dying, but can anyone really say that I didn't have it coming?
Yeah. You know what? I was gonna go maybe do this a little later in the episode, but let's do it right now. What do you think is causing the current fall of creepypasta that we have right now?
Oh, it's easy. The market that was that built creepypastas up is now growing up and realizing that they don't like creepypastas, and the new demographic that they're trying to target doesn't care about creepypastas anymore, because what's scary isn't, ooh, there's some creepy thing happening in my house. Whoa! It's now like old style horror, like Freddy and Jason and what have you. I think that's why you see like a resurgence of these games coming up, these like slasher horror games.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing, is that horror games have definitely gotten more prominent in the past few years. And with the popularity of Let's Players, younger kids who probably would have been listening to the pasta narrations, reading the creepypastas from the wiki, they've moved on basically to kind of pay more attention to what's going on, on the Let's Play side of things. Because of course they're not going to buy the fucking games because they're little kids who don't want to play video games.
Yeah, they just want to watch them.
Yeah, I want to watch this guy play an interactive medium for me. If any of you guys like Let's Players out there, don't take this as an insult. We're just mostly complaining about people who watch a Let's Play and then say, this is my favorite game. I love this game.
We're saying your audience is stupid, but not you.
No, I'm not even saying the audience is stupid. If someone there likes Let's Plays, it's perfectly reasonable. It's just, you don't make it come across that you know about the game, you've played the game, you love the game individually, just because you watched someone playing it. Because there is a disconnect of an interactive medium being viewed rather than being played in its native format. But that's just me.
Let's Play audiences are stupid.
Okay, we're moving on. But you have a point about how most Creepypasta as readers, listeners, what have you, they're moving on. And one of the things they moved on to are those true scary story compilations they see on YouTube all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of replaced Creepypasta in a weird way.
There are also not to mention, like, a lot of them probably grew out of horror. And of the few of them that liked the genre enough to stick with it, they're probably, like you said, they're probably going with true horror, like, true crime, that kind of thing.
Yeah, or they're actually watching classic horror, they're reading horror literature, or they're reading actual true crime of, we'll just go with the guy we started the episode with. Jeff the Killer is fucking stupid in retrospect. Let's read about actual serial killers.
Yeah, because they're actually scary.
Yeah, they're really fucked up. Like, hey, have you kids ever read about Albert Fish? That guy was fucking crazy.
Don't tell the kids about Albert Fish.
Oh, God. Okay, like, if anyone is a younger listener, Albert Fish is genuinely terrifying. Like, that man is actually scary. Well, he was. He's long dead by now, but...
And we definitely shouldn't tell the kids about David Parker Ray.
Let's not talk about David Parker
Definitely
Ray.
should not tell them about David Parker Ray.
Let's stop talking about David Parker Ray right this instant.
He was a good man, misunderstood.
Oh, boy. No, please, no.
But I think another reason, getting back on topic here, another reason that I think Creepypastas died was because their quality really stagnated. And there was very little variation between one or another.
Yeah, you know what? Fair enough. Because that, especially during the early days, that was the biggest issue. But because we were all dumb kids and kind of reading it like, it's so spooky. Yeah. We didn't really pay attention.
Yeah, not to mention, I don't know if you felt the same way, but as a kid, I felt like I could relate to stories if I felt like I knew what was coming up. Like, basically, the less surprise there was, the better I'd react to the story.
I don't know, actually. I'd have to think about that. I don't really remember how I would react to that kind of thing when I was younger. When I was like, early teens, just getting in there.
That might just be me, but that's how I was. Like, I liked predictability in my stories. Now I don't, obviously, because it ruins the story. But,
yeah, exactly.
But back then, I was like, this is like The Rake, for example. Oh, this is cool. I know what to expect. I can't wait to see what happens.
Okay, to be fair, the Rake's a pretty cool monster.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I feel like Creepypastas at its strongest points were about supernatural monsters.
Yeah. Like, vague, unexplained stuff is generally... hold that thought. Have we ever really talked about what things Creepypastas did as their strength? Because I think that's definitely something we should probably address right now.
I think monsters, like I mentioned before, and subtlety were its strengths.
Yeah, I think
anonymity.
Like anonymous users kind of just post them around, like X or whatever. Okay, yeah, I can see that. I think the biggest strength of Creepypasta, though, is when they don't follow the traditional narrative structure.
Yeah, I can see that. That's another thing. It's really freeing, especially at the time. Or not freeing, I should say. It was really fresh to see that happening.
Yeah, because they just read as, like, encounters people had with the supernatural, with something unexplained, whatever. Which obviously is not real, but it's written as if it was written by a real person just detailing what they experienced. And that was kind of neat.
Yeah, it was at the time.
And one of the things I've noticed that why Creepypastas started to go down the shitter is that even though, technically they went down the shitter in terms of, like, popularity, but in quality they did improve because they just became short stories.
Mm-hmm.
They had those traditional structures, beginning, middle, and end, identifiable authors, and everything.
Yeah, and I felt like because they were short stories, it just added to the horror because, the longer you make your story, the more detail you have to add, and the more detail you have, the less angst you have towards whatever is causing the horror within your tale.
Yeah, like, kind of the less intimidation there is towards whatever the force of nature or the threat in the little snippet of the story was.
Yes.
Which is like, is story even the right word for what we're talking about? Because they're not really stories, they're like fictitious encounters.
Well, I'm using story because it's a word that I'm definitely familiar with and everyone's familiar with, so...
Okay, we'll use story from now on, but when we talk about like the pure creepypasta that we just spent a little bit describing, that's what we're referring to.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get into detail and be really, anal about it, technically story isn't the right word for the creepypasta, but we're just using it for...
Yes, just to get that out there so you guys know, like, we're just using it shorthand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we know you're stupid.
To be fair, though, like, are they stupid or are we stupid? Is that
both?
Okay, you know what? We're all stupid together. We're all in it together,
all
everybody.
Stupid. Yep.
Yeah, we'll be stupid together, and maybe if we work hard enough, we'll be smart together one day. We're all in this together, buddies.
We'll never be smart.
We will never be intelligent, but we can believe.
No.
Yes, we can. I'm believing right now.
It's a false belief.
Don't make me sad. I'm in a good mood. We're having a good day talking about pastas past Halloween because we didn't upload an episode in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's November.
But okay, let me ask you a question. In your opinion, what was the peak of creepypasta quality? Like, what was your best story ever read?
Okay, so we're doing that now? We doing like best worst creepypastas right now?
Just in your opinion.
Okay, we'll start off with, I don't even know if we want to talk about worst pastas. Let's just talk about best. I don't have a definitive list. I'd actually have to sit down, reread them, and think about it, obviously, but kind of just off the top of my head for my favorite pastas. Barbie.avi was always one that I reflected fondly upon.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I think I like it mostly just because it's such it leaves more questions than answers, and it's just unnerving. Like, it's not creepy. It's not scary. It's just vaguely unnerving. And that's what pastas do best, in my opinion. You got one?
Yeah, I've never been a fan of... Well, I shouldn't say I've never been a fan, because I do enjoy the medium, but I've never been entirely attracted to the subtlety factor of horror. I like the more, in-your-face, visceral kind of thing, especially when I was a kid. Less so now, but when I was a kid, I really liked it. So, my favorite one was the Russian sleep experiment.
Ooh, yeah, that was pretty good, too.
Yeah.
I like Russian sleep experiment a lot up until the very end when they have that monologue about how we're kept behind to sleep or whatever because we're demons. Everything up to that point was really good.
And that's another thing that I think creepypastas have had a very hard time dealing with. Well, I shouldn't say creepypastas, because that doesn't make sense. But, the writers of creepypastas have had a hard time, in general, fixing. I think a lot of them feel the need to explain their story toward the end. Yeah,
that's a problem.
When it actually ends up hurting it.
Yeah, because they need to have an identifiable antagonist, and that doesn't always work all the time. Yeah, because past
imagine if... Sorry to interrupt.
No, go
Imagine if at the end of Barbie AVI, there was, a police investigation wrapping everything up. So now the reader knows exactly what happened the whole time. It would be horrible.
That'd be awful.
Yeah.
And I can see what you mean by that. And one of the bigger issues I have with that is the obsession with identifiable pasta monsters that really kept the genre alive in popularity, but really hurt the fear factor.
Yeah. Ones that come to mind are Jeff the Killer, Ben, Slender Man, The Rake, Squidward.
Yes, fucking Squidward suicide.
Mm-hmm.
That's another one. That's another one I can't stand, is the obsession of creepypastas to just take childhood properties and just say, OMG, I'm gonna make it spooky and ruin your childhood.
Well, maybe for the first couple attempts, it was successful.
I disagree.
Because, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it depends on the individual, but for me, it didn't work.
It never works. It never works for me at all.
But I feel like for some people, it would really have hit home, especially for people who, maybe went to Disneyland as a kid and they saw that Disney World creepypasta, whatever it was called.
Hey, guess what? I went to Disneyland once.
Yeah.
Didn't do shit for me.
Yeah.
I think the obsession with making Disney and Nickelodeon and Nintendo scary is the thing that hurt creepypasta the most. Like, the obsession with it.
Yeah, it did definitely have an obsession with making games and especially family-friendly material scary.
Like, it's stupid.
And it definitely had a very hard time doing so. Like, hey, does anyone remember Sonic.exe?
Like, for fuck's sake, just turn the game off.
Yeah. Oh, wait, Godzilla NES.
Godzilla NES, I respect it in some ways because clearly a lot of work went into it with all the little images and everything like that.
Yeah, it was definitely well made and, in my opinion, well written up to a point. But it had another problem that a lot of creepypastas had. It just went too far.
It goes too far with the concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a concept, goes way too far with it, and it just becomes a parody of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the best... we're just talking about video game creepypastas. Another one of my favorites is Pale Luna.
Yeah, Pale Luna was pretty good too, yeah.
Yeah, because Pale Luna is one of the most bare-bones creepypastas I've ever read. It's so good. It's super good. And it just ends on this really down note. It doesn't go any farther.
That's always a very strong way to end any horror medium that you have. Don't end on a happy note. That's going to ruin your entire narrative.
Exactly. And it's really nice. I like it a lot. It's short as fuck. You can probably read it in like 5 minutes. So, yeah. So again, if anyone hasn't read these, probably check them out because they're pretty solid for what they are, and they're pretty. In terms of creepypastas, they're some of the higher quality ones.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have a second favorite? You have another
one? There was one that I do remember fondly, but I can't remember the name.
What's it about?
It's about this team of scientists who try and block out the senses of some homeless guy to make him communicate with God.
Gateway to the Mind.
What's that?
Gateway to the Mind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that one, if you know what I'm talking about, that one I remember very fondly because it was, it wasn't explicit in what was happening. Like, everyone can kind of guess what was happening. Some people thought, like, oh, okay, maybe he actually just saw the devil, or maybe he did see God, but God's a dick, or he was having a hallucination, because that's kind of what happens in real life when you block out all your senses. There's a lot of things that can explain the story, but it's never explicitly told to you.
Yeah, and I think I actually remember the line the story ends on, because it's actually a pretty creepy sentence. It's, I have spoken with God, and he has abandoned us. And
yeah,
that's it.
That was it.
Yeah, that's eerie, man. I like that.
Yeah, that's a really good way to end the story. You want to know why it's a good way to end the story? Because it's a bummer.
Yeah, it's a bummer, and I think there's another thing that we were talking about. It's vague. What the fuck does that mean, he's abandoned us? Mm-hmm. Why has he abandoned us? When has he abandoned us?
And for what purpose?
Yeah, and is it God? Who knows?
Yeah, is it even God to begin with? It could have very easily been Satan.
Or it just could be
some variation of like some anti-theist kind of thing.
Yeah, or the guy's crazy.
Yeah, or he's crazy.
Or maybe it's not the Christian God. Maybe it's, maybe if we want to go full on Lovecraft, maybe it's the old gods. Maybe it's aliens. Maybe it's, who knows?
Yeah. It's really ambiguous, and that's what makes it really good.
Yeah, creepypastas at their best explore small ideas and concepts and do it fast.
Mm-hmm.
And the longer pastas, especially in the recent years, seem to be a product of the popularity of recognizable authors and no sleep, like the Reddit no sleep. And they all follow those kind of tried and true story tropes of beginning, middle, and Freytag's pyramid, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which
there's also an awful lot. There's also an awful lot of blatant idiocy in creepypastas, especially with the characters.
Okay, to be fair, that's horror. Come on.
I know that's a horror trope, but I mean, if you or I were writing a story and we had complete control over our characters, one thing I definitely wouldn't do is make my character stupid. Maybe make him gullible, but not stupid.
I actually find a stupid protagonists in horror because, okay, let's think of it this way. How many stupid people in the world are there?
Fair enough.
There you go. That's I'm actually okay with making a stupid horror protagonist. I want a believable protagonist. That's the biggest thing, is that as long as their behavior is consistent with the character that's been outlined for us, that's fine.
I wasn't even talking about protagonists. I was talking about supporting characters.
Yeah, protagonists, supporting characters. I should have spoke more clearly about that. This is my bad there. But like, anyway, as long as their actions are consistent with the character we're given.
Yeah. Like, going back to Godzilla NES, you can see that at the beginning of the story, he was interested in just playing the game, right? And then some weird shit happening, he just went with it. Or because he thought it was like a ROM hack or whatever. But then, towards the end of the story, he turns out to be like some martyr, just playing the game so that it wouldn't like be released out into the public or some shit.
Because it's a demon. I don't know. I think the term is jumping the shark, and the moment where it's like ghosts are actually infesting his game. Here's the ghost of his dead girlfriend. That's a shark jump. There's no going back after you know that your dead girlfriend's ghost is possessing your video game. Oh, that'd be funny, actually. That's funny, now that I think about it. That's hilarious. Like, the afterlife is you get stuck in fucking video games.
Yeah, what if you get stuck in a bad one, too?
Oh, that'd be great. Imagine if you got stuck in Devil May Cry 2. That'd be my hell.
Oh.
If I got...
Yeah. What if you got stuck in Silent Hill Homecoming?
I'd kill myself in every way possible, and if that wouldn't work, I would just sit in a little stall, a little bathroom stall at the beginning of the game with the sexy nurses, and I'd just wait. I'd wait for entropy to take me.
You just wait?
I'd wait for the heat death of the universe so that the copy of the game I am haunting can just rot.
You'd be waiting a long time to be
I don't care. I'll wait. I'm not going to make that game interesting for anybody. If they played Silent Hill Homecoming, they got to suffer through it.
Are you going to haunt the game
for
the next user?
No, I'm not going to haunt it. I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to change nothing. Because playing it's the worst experience of all.
Anything else you have to add about those creepypastas?
We're getting a little off topic there, but there are actually a few things that I kind of wanted to address. What are your thoughts on the trend and kind of the formerly growing and now currently dwindling trend of creepypasta narrators?
Well, I always felt like there were only a handful of decent creepypasta narrators, and most of them weren't even that famous.
Okay, I'll go on.
I feel like, for me, the biggest example is Mr. Creepypasta. Of course, no disrespect towards Mr. Creepypasta. He's fine, whatever. If you like him, you like him, but I don't.
I like Mr.
I feel like his voice doesn't fit well for a horror narrator. I feel like he only got famous for his Jeff the Killer, which at best was cringy.
I agree on Jeff being cringy, but I have my own ideas on Mr. Creepypasta.
I feel like it really depends on the story he's reading, which is the case for every sort of narrator. It really depends on what they're reading, if their voice can match it or not. But I feel like in Mr. Creepypasta's case, that he had a more limited option, considering that he had a higher inflection to his voice. He often spoke very quickly, which doesn't work as well for slower-paced stories. Whereas someone like Creepypasta had a much more baritone voice and spoke at a slightly slower pace, which gave the illusion that there was a lot more suspense happening than there really was, at least for me.
See, I don't know. Like, for me, first time Creepypasta sounds so much like Vadi Video to me that I can't get it out of my head.
Well, if you had never heard of Vadi Video, then you'd probably think it was fine.
Yeah, he's good. I'm not going to pretend like he's not. Like, there's very few pasta narrators I think are genuinely bad at what they do. And all of them, I think, are pretty decent in some way. Like, when they're reading the story that's suited for them, I think they're all could be pretty decent. Out of the big ones, anyway. And like I said earlier, I like Mr. Creepypasta. I listened to his stuff when I first started getting into creepypastas when I was a stupid teenager. I think it was around like 2011, 2012. I was pretty close when we first started, actually.
I started listening to him too.
Yeah, like I think we both started listening around the same time.
Yeah, we started listening to him around the same time, and he was my first sort of experience with creepypastas, but I never thought he was a good enough narrator. Not bad, mind you, just not good enough for the medium.
I think he's good when he's given a story that suits his style of voice, like you said. And there's one in particular that it's a problem because as a creepypasta, it's pretty much everything wrong we described, where it's too long, it's going for a traditional short story style. But in terms of being just a short story with a horror kind of backdrop, Baraska was pretty decent. And I think I've been trying to get you...
I'm not too familiar with him.
Yeah, Baraska, the story that Mr. Creepypasta read, it's one I've been trying to get you to read for a bit, because it's not bad, actually. Even though it does embody a lot of what we described as what's wrong with modern creepypasta. But it's a pretty decent story, actually. I recommend it. Check it out.
I won't.
Fine, whatever, fuck. But what makes it work is that because it's a lot of the high school stuff, a lot of the younger kids, young adults, that Mr. Creepypasta, like, the more energy that he does put into his narrations, it works. It works well. And
I guess different strokes, right?
Yeah, different strokes, different folks. And I think about creepypasta narrators, one of the reasons why they're going down the drain to where even like million sub channels can like barely crack a fifth of what they're getting. Like going back to like Creepypasta, like dude's got like 1 million subs. And I think he can barely get like 20k views a video at this point. So yeah, fuck.
Well, yeah, a lot of the more popular channels are definitely struggling. But I think the problem is derived specifically because the medium just wasn't, it couldn't survive long term.
Put a pinpoint on that because we'll talk about that in a second. I just want to point out how I think what killed it in general was that the oversaturation. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of creepypasta narrators out there.
I was actually just about to get to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about how the medium couldn't survive, or this pasta narrator over
the oversaturation of the medium?
Okay, let's start with that then. What's your thoughts on that then?
I think it's quite simple. People saw how popular creepypastas were getting, and they wanted to cash in on it.
Yeah, gotta make that dollar bill.
What?
Gotta make that dollar bill, son.
Yeah, to get that sweet dollar bill. It's kind of like the Let's Play community, how oversaturated that is.
Yeah, it's a perfect comparison, actually, and it's very interesting how interlinked a lot of horror and Let's Play actually is with the saturation of both markets of creepypasta, narrator, and Let's Play.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting connection, actually.
I mean, look at a channel like Creepy Gaming, where they're pretty much intertwined.
Yeah, actually, that's true. You got anything else to say on kind of the oversaturation creepypasta, the narrators?
Well, I think that a lot of I did notice that a lot of the people who were trying to cash in were either good but just undervalued, or they were children, basically.
Yeah, like they're like 15 or whatever.
Younger, in my opinion.
Oh, really?
Like around age 12, 13.
Oh shit, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah, and there was a lot of narrators like that. And not to mention, I just want to say they did have a lot of potential. I can't obviously name them off the top of my head because it was a long time ago. But they definitely did have the potential to become a decent narrator, but never a good one. Which is inevitably what killed them.
And let's mention that it's a boom and bust market, and we're going through a bust. And their participation is what is kind of leading to the bust.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a speculation of what happened with comic book speculation buying, is that everyone's buying it, so it's just becomes such a mass-produced commodity that no one cares.
Mm-hmm.
Because I imagine people who were enthusiastic about creepypastas probably subscribed to, like, probably upwards of 20 to 100 of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have that much content to listen to.
Yeah. Sorry, kind of.
No, it's cool. It's cool. It's just kind of like the errors of recording. We're going to make those every once in a while because we're going off the cuff. We're making a reel for you guys.
Yeah, dude. As real as Honey Boo Boo.
Shut the fuck up, reality television. If you watch reality...
watch Real Housewives later?
If you watch reality television, you're a fucking sheep. Stop it right now. Break the conditioning.
We know we're under attack! We know it! We're breaking the conditioning! We're coming for you, globalist! Coming for you! Coming for you! We know what you're doing!
Yo, I think we should watch the Discovery Channel.
Break the fucking conditioning right now. Don't watch TV.
It's educational.
It's not. It's propaganda.
Have you ever seen Ice Road Truckers? I've never learned so much about Ice Road Trucking.
Ice Road Truckers is propaganda.
It's not propaganda.
It's deep state propaganda.
It's proper television.
Television is proper propaganda. Oh, think of that.
I think we should also talk about the varying quality in creepypastas.
We should get to that because there's a couple things that I would like to address. First thing on the narrator thing, and then before we get to why creepypastas could not last as a genre, because I think that's definitely something we should probably get in there. But a couple of things I want to note about narrators that I think the most interesting narrators to me are the ones where they manage to do something. Oh, excuse me. Where they manage to do something a little more unique with the style and not just read from a script.
Yeah. Actually, one case of that comes to my mind was the reading of Funny Mouth by Mr. Creepypasta, where he had a very detailed edited video to go along with the narration.
Yeah, that works. Like stuff like that. And there's two other examples I'll bring up now just quickly before we move on. One is there's a channel called Midnight Marinara, and what they do
sounds delicious.
It does sound delicious, doesn't it? What those guys over there do is that they do kind of like radio drama adaptions of creepypastas, where they're not reading word for word from the pasta, they're kind of like rewriting it to work it as like a script for radio drama.
No, that sounds interesting.
It's really interesting, actually. It's one of the more interesting variants of creepypastas I've seen. And they get like an ensemble cast to record it. When we're done here, I'll give you a link if you're interested, because a lot of their stuff is pretty neat.
No, don't mistake my enthusiasm as being real. It's just for the channel.
Okay, fair enough. And another one is a creepypasta narration by Mr. Creepypasta. You know, kind of our favorite scapegoat right now. I love you, Mr. Creepypasta. You're a cool guy. You're okay. But
he's a pain in the ass.
He's a pain in the ass. Oh, we're gonna get our video pulled. He's gonna complain about it now.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, we're not praising him enough. But he is one of his narrations that I don't think the story itself is the best in the world or anything, but the actual way it's delivered is fantastic. It's The Horror from the Vault.
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, so the horror from the vault, it's sort of like Midnight Marinara, like I described, but it's a word for word rereading of a lot of some story called the horror of the vault. And what he does is that because he's the biggest channel, he's got like whatever million subscribers. He decides, okay, I'm just gonna get every narrator I can to fit all the roles of the characters in this. And it comes across like this big ensemble piece, and it's great. It's one of the best narrations of a creepypasta I've ever read, even if the story itself isn't, it's not amazing or anything, but I think it's a pretty good one. And
that sounds pretty cool.
Now, I wish creepypasta narrators like him would do that more, where if they're going to pretend to be like a big community or whatever, why not do more communal projects like that?
Because that takes too much time and effort and...
It does,
time.
But things like that, that's the stuff that's going to get the more views, I think. And
well, it really depends. You have to, obviously, you need to strike a decent balance between, pumping them out as quickly as possible and maintaining a decent quality. You can't really do both.
Yeah, I can understand that. And obviously you got to pay bills, so you got to get them out fast, but... I think to really reinvigorate creepypastas as kind of a narrating community, that's probably the way to do it, is to make them more like radio plays. Make them like radio drama.
Well, that's assuming that the creepypastas themselves actually get better.
Fair enough, I guess. But I don't know, I think from the narration aspect, I think that's a way to kind of keep it alive. Those two examples, I think, are doing a good job.
It would definitely be interesting to see a resurgence of creepypastas in that framework.
Yeah, and the other topic you want to touch on was why creepypastas as a genre couldn't last.
Mm-hmm.
What did you want to say on that?
I think it is entirely because it was a fad. I mean, let's just be honest. It was a fad.
Yeah.
These weren't true horror stories. Well, not by true horror stories, I don't mean real life horror stories. I mean, like, they were not horror stories. They weren't really that scary. They were creepy, as the name implies. They were sometimes creepy. And, that's another thing. They were only sometimes creepy. The, quality of each story varied wildly between each article.
That's fair.
And because there was such this, variation of quality, like I keep saying, you couldn't really expect to find something decent to read or to listen to. And it just, to me, it simulated like the video game crash of the 80s or the 70s, whenever
83.
It was. 83. And it just like, you didn't know what you were getting into. I mean, it was not exactly like the video game crash because you don't pay for these stories for the most part. But still, it's just so unpredictable that I think a lot of people just got tired of reading the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, and you can't really make a genre like that last. And we have flooded it so much, there's no real way to bring it back because the people who were invested think they know what to expect, even if more quality creepypastas are coming out.
Mm-hmm. We could have genuine horror authors write creepypastas, and they wouldn't get any traction beyond the name alone.
Pretty much, honestly. And it kind of sucks, but it's a fad, and we bought into the fad when we were teenagers, and now we're just looking back on it. Yeah. So yeah, that's mostly just everything on kind of the boom and bust of creepypastas. Because I think we addressed that kind of in smatterings throughout the entire video so far, or podcast, whatever you want to call it so far.
I'd also one more thing I wanted to add about the death of the fad. I feel like the YouTube channels that covered this content really helped kill it off, because they weren't looking for good stuff either. They were trying to pump out videos as quickly as possible to cash in on as much as quickly as possible. Which, I mean, I'm not demonizing them for that. Obviously, like you said earlier, you got to pay the bills. But because people were listening to them, and they, like I said earlier, they were just listening to the same thing over and over and over again, sometimes rereading old stories. It just, I mean, what did people expect? It wasn't going to last if everything you put out is essentially the same.
Yeah. And I think the numbers show that because, from what I can remember, from what little research I've been doing when looking into the numbers, the peak popularity I can find between these channels is like 2012 to 2015. And after that, it's just been a steady downhill stream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I got anything else to say on like pasta narrators, anything else like that?
No, not on pasta narrators. I do want to say one thing.
Go.
I'm coming for you, Kevin James.
Fucking okay. I get it. You want Kevin James? I'll get you your interview with Kevin James so you can ask him your question. I will do that.
Suck his dick.
I can't promise I'll let you do that. You gotta respect Kevin James as a person. But I can promise you can ask him one question. I can do that for you one day. Just gotta be patient.
Get me, Kevin.
Okay, so I do have one last topic to discuss before we end this. One idea. Do you think there is a future to Creepypasta? And if there is, where would it go?
Now, it's really hard to say because Creepypasta, it kind of covered everything.
Yeah,
I mean, unless there's something that you and I are just not thinking of, there's not much else that it can go to.
Yeah, because, I mean, there is an example I have heard of, and have you heard of Petscop?
No.
Okay, so Petscop has been called the true successor to Ben Drowned, to where it is a pseudo creepypasta that is entirely a web series. It's entirely the gameplay recordings of a fictional game called Petscop.
Now, here's the thing. Eventually, that's just going to die out, too.
Well, here's the thing about Petscop is that it is popular, but it's because it's gotten all these attention from these, analyst channels.
Analysts.
Yes, the theory-making channels, if you know what I mean.
Oh.
Yeah.
Those are shit channels.
Yeah, the channels. We're not talking about one in particular, not at all.
I said channels.
Yeah, we're not singling one theory channel out. Not doing that.
We're talking about game theories.
What? Nah, that's crazy. You're crazy. That's insane. We'd never shit talk fucking game theory.
It used to be good and now it's bad.
And how Link is totally dead, you guys, despite how that doesn't actually make sense if you put a lick of effort into thinking about it. Now, don't think.
Shit channel.
Yeah, don't think. Don't actually think about these theories, but still claim you're thinking beyond the surface level. That's definitely valid. But anyway, Petscop, it was kind of underground until those channels started looking at it. Yeah, those channels, excuse me.
Yeah.
So, and no one really knows if it's done yet. That's the thing. It's popular.
I assume that if the uploads stop, then it's done, right?
It's not clear. It's really not clear. It's being put in this weird. It's a web series. It's kind of like a Ben Drowned style creepypasta. It's kind of an ARG. It's not clear. And interesting stuff. Really interesting stuff. And I think that's the future of creepypasta, if there is any future to the genre at all, is doing it in odd ways like that. Because, you're on the internet, you can do more than just type in, like, fucking Wattpad or whatever.
Are you sure?
I am somewhat certain. Don't quote me on it, though.
Because you know how hard it is to Google something.
Yeah, you know how hard it is to do anything beyond just, like, slamming my keyboard about how it was the Day of the Blood or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and have you read any recent creepypastas?
Within, 6 months? No, I don't think so.
Yeah. I think in the last year, I think there's one. I think there's
Oh wait,
one.
no, I did have listened to one. It was shit, what was it? Tales of a Forest Ranger, I think.
Oh, the Forest Search and Ranger Rescue one, the no sleep one.
Yeah. That one I read, quote unquote. I actually just listened to it.
Yeah.
And that was pretty good. But
you know, I agree. That one's good.
That was like the last one I listened to in months.
And I think we should probably use that as a recent example because I think it came out like a couple years ago or a year ago or something like that. That's actually a really good recent example, considering that it's a longer one, but it's a collection of vignettes, and it does exactly what we've been talking about, where it's just exploring weird, unsettling circumstances, like the stairs in the woods it keeps talking about.
Yeah, it's not explicit horror. It's very subtle.
Yeah, it's just and it kind of has this vague illusion as it goes on, like maybe there's a government conspiracy, maybe it's a cult activity, who knows? But it's never in your nose about it, and it's not trying to be like a beginning, middle, end narrative, and that's why it works. It's really good. Really good. I read one. Not one. There's like 3 or 4 sequels, and they're kind of bad, but it's a story called Third Parent. I think I've told you about this in the past.
You have not.
Okay, so it's another one from Reddit, and I hate using Reddit, but I was told to read this one, so I did. I think it goes overboard in the worst ways that we were talking about, but the vague idea of third parent, and kind of, especially the first one, I'd recommend reading the first one alone. It's really good. It does have a pasta monster in a way, but it's done in kind of an interesting way, to where he acts just kind of wrong. And the true horror of Third Parent is all in the implication and the idea of living with, like, being forced to live with a member of the family that clearly does not have the best intentions, but is really, really not clear in what their intentions even are.
So, like living with Kid Rock.
Yeah, it's like if Kid Rock was like your godfather. It's fucked up,
God.
Man.
That's horrifying.
It is a scary story, and okay, it's not scary. In fact, no, that's why I like it. It's not scary. It's just uncanny.
It's unnerving.
Yeah, exactly. And the sequels go for more visceral horror, and I don't like that.
Well, sometimes visceral horror can work.
It does, but I'll send you a link to this one, to just Third Parent, and I want you to kind of read that, and we're just talking in our free time, just kind of give me your ideas on it, because it's pretty good.
Okay.
Got anything else to say on creepypastas in general? Because that's just kind of all I want to do on it. Just kind of fun.
I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the question, who was phone?
Do you have a theory on who the phone was? Like, not even joking. Like, who do you think was the phone?
Tall marketer.
Fuck, that's a good one. Okay, that's a good answer. Okay, I think I know who the phone was.
Who was it?
Okay. So let's go over the story again, right? Okay, so he's making out with his honey, right?
Right.
Okay, so here the implication though is that when he picks up the phone, it's the thing that claims it's his dad. That's his honey's dad, and it's like, don't make out with my daughter or I'll kill you, or whatever the fuck the line was. Okay, how would the voice know that they were making out if it wasn't in the girl's house? Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, I think I see where you're going with this.
Okay,
He phoned
hold on.
himself.
No. I got a different one. Okay. So they never say that the voice is deep, that the dad of the girl has a deep voice. They never specify that. They just say I'm her dad.
Okay.
So it might be in the girl's house. And it might be someone who might not have a necessarily deep voice, okay? I'm gonna blow your fucking mind.
I think I know where you're going with this.
It's the mother of the girl. It's the mother of the girl.
Well, that just adds another question. How stupid is this guy?
He's stupid because look at the way he wrote the story. Think about it.
Oh, yeah,
Look at the
enough.
way he presented
okay.
the story.
How'd the mother know that would work, though?
How did she know his work? She probably knows he's an idiot, and she probably was watching them while in the house and made the phone call.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
sold. That works.
It's the mother, and the guy's clearly an idiot, so he wouldn't ask questions beyond, oh, your dad called and threatened me. And when he heard, and it's like, oh no, my dad's dead. And the guy's an idiot because look at the way he types, look at the way he presented his story. It's true. It's got to be the mother. Because she's trying to keep her daughter from having sex with an idiot to disrespect her dead father.
Wow. That's a good ending to the story.
Yeah, it's the mom.
Although you just ruined the horror aspect of it.
It's
by
not
giving it
horror.
An ending.
It's
That makes
terrifying.
sense.
It's terrifying, dude. Think about it. The mother's so hung up over her father's death, she can't get over it. Over the father's death. She's not her father.
No, I'm not thinking that's the part that's scary. It's scary that you could be that stupid. That it's possible to be that stupid.
Yeah, it is. It is. Because think about it. It's unreliable narrator.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one posting the story about his experience, and he's such an idiot he can't type it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
That's true fear, man. So yeah, we answered the question here on Postmodern Mythologies. Who was phone? The mother was phone. Wake up.
Get red pilled. Right here on Postmodern Mythologies.
You're just going to OD on our red pills, man.
Next episode, interview with Kevin James's daughter.
Stay tuned.